Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host Andy Nolch, and these are closed door secret briefings about special deep information about Scientology and the world, information that you need to know. And today's briefing is part 5 of my briefing series about OT8. Last briefing I fully read out the introduction document to OT8, the student briefing, which is extremely interesting. And then I got maybe halfway through it explaining each point, because it's the sort of thing where it's extremely hard to understand, and you need to keep on stopping every sentence and explaining it. I've studied tons of things, and I think I know a lot about the word, a lot about real history and conspiracies and spiritual stuff. And I actually feel like I might actually get what Hubbard is trying to communicate in this OT8 document, because it's extremely deep. I'm not at the OT8 level, but I've studied a lot of stuff and I'm absolutely okay with the data. Auditing wise, I'm probably not ready for it. I didn't even think I could run it. And I couldn't even really run Dianetics, to be honest. But information wise, I'm okay with it, because sometimes with these higher levels, people have hernias when they hear the information. They're like, oh my God. Well, actually, when I did first hear this, I was like, whoa, it made me question Scientology because it was so out there. But anyway, I feel like I can handle it. I feel like I can understand it. And that's why I'm making this video, and I'm saying my interpretation of what this data is, because this is like top secret society data. This is like Illuminati data. This is like alien data. This is off-world data. This is deep stuff. And a lot of people who actually go through Scientology and get up to OT8, they can't even handle it, and they can't even understand it, because they have just been studying Scientology. But you need to study all these other things, and you have to do what Hubbard did. And Hubbard wasn't really a Scientologist, honestly. Like he was more a Crowley fan. The way he lived his life, he did violate a lot of the Scientology policies and stuff, but he studied these other things, and he wasn't just brainwashed in one religion. And if you've only studied Scientology, honestly, because I know a lot of people get into Scientology when they're in their like early 20s and stuff like that, like a young adult. That's all they get exposed to. You've been brainwashed. That's the honest truth. And it's if you've only learnt geography, you're brainwashed by geography. If you've only learnt Christianity, that's your only religion, you're brainwashed by Christianity. So if you only learnt Scientology, you're brainwashed by Scientology. You haven't collected other viewpoints and got data from other sources and tried to piece things together. So anyway, some people who have done this, who have read this document, I think it freaks them out heaps, because Hubbard drops some bombs in this. He says he's the Antichrist, which is kind of like the devil, you know. He just says it, and I'm going to explain why he says it and the meaning of it. And you know, there's so much going on. I'm actually in Porto Escondido, and you'll see in the background that, and it's quite hot. Actually, I got my water here. No hot tea for me. I'm sweating a lot. So anyway, let's get into this, part 5, and I'll continue reading out this document, then explaining what he says. With the exception of the original Buddhism, virtually all religions of any consequence on this planet, mono and pantheistic alike, have been instruments to speed the progress of this evolution of consciousness and bring about the eventual enslavement of mankind. And so he's sort of referring to this evolution of consciousness as being, I don't know, some sort of mind control thing. I don't think I fully get what he means by that term, but people evolving, people who got involved with these spiritual groups, evolving to be really less conscious, because he puts it in inverted commas. Evolution of consciousness is like their consciousness isn't really evolving, it's bullshit. But it just it basically their awareness is lowering, but they don't know it. And that's personally what I think. Like, I know someone who's a Christian, and she thinks her awareness is high and that she's more evolved, but I think that she's under mind control and that she's less evolved, and she isn't more conscious, but she's like, I've been washed by the blood of Christ, and says interesting things like that. Like, what the hell does that mean? I've been saved by the blood of Christ. Like, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, whoa. And then you look at them and they're not that awake to what's really going on in the universe and life and all that stuff. Like, they're not as aware as they could be if they hadn't gotten involved with Christianity. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up is because this whole thing has to do with Christianity, this briefing, because Hubbard just before this mentioned how Christianity was bad. And I've got more to say on that, and it'll probably be in the next briefing, which will be my last briefing of all the briefings. But anyway, I'll continue with this. As you know, Siddhartha Gautama never claimed to be anything more than a man. Having caught on to this operation, he postulated his own return as Maitreya, a part of which prophecy will have been fulfilled upon the passing of L. Ron Hubbard. So it's basically saying that he was the Buddha. For those of you whose Christian toes I may have stepped on, let me take the opportunity to disabuse you of some lovely myths. For instance, the historic Jesus was not nearly the sainted figure he has been made out to be. In addition to being a lover of young boys and men, he was given to uncontrollable bursts of temper and hatred that belied the general message of love, understanding, and other typical Markab PR. You have only to look at the history his teachings inspire to see where it all inevitably leads. It is historic fact, and yet man clings to the ideal. So deep and insidious is the biologic implanting. So he's basically implying that the implanting makes people obsessed with Christianity, really, in that sort of statement, because, and he said this in other materials in Scientology. He believed Christianity is an implant and stuff like that. I believe that as well. In fact, if you follow the Farsight group of remote viewers, farsight.org, check it out, they remote viewed Muhammad, and Muhammad while he was talking to God. And it turns out that God was an alien. Sorry, when he was talking to God or the angel Michelangelo or one of those freaking angels. And it turns out that was just an alien, basically, and the alien was really like a military sort of commander guy giving him commands, saying blah 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 blah. And if you looked at the way the Muslim religion went in and took over, it was like a whole political thing. It wasn't just a peaceful religion or whatever. It was a political movement, and he conquered territories, the Muhammad guy. When the remote viewers looked into the part of the Muslim Bible where Muhammad was saying he got to visit heaven and hell and stuff like that, they looked into it, and basically that was an implant. He got implanted when he got the experiences of heaven and hell. And I imagine how that works is that you take a primitive earthling, an alien walks along and says, hey, I'm God or whatever, the creator of the universe, and they're like, oh my God. And then you show them hell and they go, wow, that's really bad. And then you show them heaven and it's like a really nice place, and they go, oh, well, that's really good. And then you tell them, if you be a bad boy, you're going to hell. If you be a good boy and do what I say, do what I say, you go to heaven. So then the guy after that is obviously obsessed with heaven. And I see people obsessed with Christianity now and worrying about committing sins and going to heaven or hell now, and they haven't had this experience with an alien. Imagine if they had actually, I don't know, been abducted when they were 8 years old and had that experience. I mean, they would be obsessed with Christianity. And you sometimes hear of experiences of kids having, I don't know what it is, but there's some American kid from like middle America, and somehow he got to see heaven and hell or something. And then after that, like the whole family, like they're already Christian, but the whole family is like totally obsessed and total believers in Christianity, and totally obsessed with spreading God's word and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I wonder if they're ever going to try and gain their psychic abilities again. I wonder if they're ever going to try and become awake New Agers and really find out about conspiracies. I think they're just going to church every Sunday and saying, you know, pray to God, and just, you know, how they're not that awake. I mean, that's all I can say. They're not that awake. And this kid having this experience, I don't think the kid's going to ever really be awake. And I can see how it's putting him into a condition where he's being controlled. So anyway, these remote viewers were looking at Muhammad going into heaven and hell. And they literally said that they were seeing people getting mind programmed and like brainwashed, and by aliens. And that's what it is. And you go, well, what's the Muhammad religion? Well, Muhammad religion is a continuation of the monotheistic religion of Judaism. So it went Judaism, then it splintered off to Christianity, then it splintered off to Islam. So they're all the same religion, and it's coming from aliens. And there's other information indicating that Christianity is an alien religion, and it's a way of controlling the sheep, because here on Earth we are like cows, and there's higher life form, which are the aliens, and they're like the difference between monkeys and humans. Like, we're higher than monkeys, right? And anyway, so like the next jump up is us and then aliens, and because they're so far advanced and stuff. And it really does seem like we're in a prison planet, and we're just like cows in a paddock, and we're being used and abducted for things, and we're not this high advanced life form. And it seems that reptilians have Earth as their territory, and they operate in secret, like the CIA, like an intelligence agency. They've just found that that's the best way to operate when it comes to humans. Like, they probably I mean, obviously they do some sneaky stuff when it comes to other aliens, but because the other aliens know they exist, it's more like they're more willing to show themselves. But when it comes to us on the surface humans, they've decided to go with some rule of just don't show yourself and hide it. But they operate like a covert, secret intelligence agency. They just find that's the best way to do it. So that's why you don't see reptilian aliens. But you hear much more about the Greys, because they use them to achieve their goals and stuff. And anyway, so they operate like an intelligence agency. Okay, that's why if you walk around the streets of Washington DC, you're not going to see a CIA guy, but they're there because it's all undercover. It's all covert operations. Secret operations. And so that's what's going on. So that's why if anyone says to you, well, where the hell are the aliens? Well, I'd say, well, it's a covert operation. You're not going to see it. It's like the same as saying, well, where the hell are the people who did 9/11? And it's like, that was all a covert operation. So you just have to study it, be very clever, and look for little clues and spot it and look for out points, and you can piece it all together, and you're like, there was a group of people who planned and orchestrated 9/11, and it's all undercover, so we don't know who it is. We can't really point directly to someone and say you're the one. And it's the same with the alien thing. They operate like the CIA, okay? And anyway, and it seems that's the way to achieve anything actually in life. If you directly do things, it's a lot harder. Like when you see now the war with Ukraine and Russia, they would have been doing sneaky covert operations for years, and then it got to a point where it was like, fuck this, we have to actually go to direct battle and not just do covert. They're still doing covert operations right now, but they need to add on top of that literal direct. They need to come out of the hiding. Well, with a lot of things, it's much easier to do the covert thing just for ages and then achieve your goals covert, and only if you're failing, then switch to overt and actually show yourself and then get into the battle. So it really does seem that these religions are absolutely alien mind control things, and this is what Hubbard's talking about, and this is what the Illuminati, I think, know about. I think they know that Christianity is just for the masses and just controls the masses and stuff, and it's not real correct spiritual science and data. And yeah, pretty much. Now, in this statement I just read out, Hubbard drops some serious bombs here. He says implies Hubbard was a pedophile. I don't know about that. That's something that I guess I'll have to keep on looking into, but it's not that much of an outrageous statement, because there was something in the Bible that mentioned a guy that wasn't dressed or something like that being near Jesus. The problem with the Bible is it's highly edited and filtered, and the church wouldn't leave in any statement that is out public relations. Do you know what I mean? It's bad public relations. So they've been editing the shit out of it. We've got, for example, I have found out some things that aren't about the him liking young boys or whatever, but there's some more things I've found out, and that is that that Jesus had a wife, and he also had some kids, and he also survived the crucifixion, and he went off and lived somewhere else and died as an old man, and I think his wife might have gone to France. Now, where the hell's that information in the Bible? There's little things that lead clues to it. For example, after the crucifixion, the Romans went around and were like, where the hell is Jesus? Like they didn't believe that he had died. They were suspicious, like why the body went missing and stuff like that. And the truth is that they actually crucified someone else that sort of looked like him. And he might have been a follower of Jesus as well, and he sacrificed himself. But he might have survived, because what they did is they gave him drugs so that he didn't feel the pain of the crucifixion. And it's possible that they were when he went off and got taken with the Romans, they were monitoring the situation and trying to make it as less violent as what you think. And also, the severe violence of the crucifixion is also just like Hollywood movie propaganda shit. Like what you see in that movie by Mel Gibson. I don't know if it was that actual brutal. But yeah, so someone else was on the cross, and then they could have went and grabbed his body, and then he could have still been alive, and he didn't quite have to put up with all the pain because he was on the drugs. And then they went and ran off, because if they had the body, when the Romans come, then they would look at it, and firstly, maybe he was still alive, this pretend Jesus guy. But secondly, they could then, if they were suspicious it wasn't really Jesus, they could then really look at the body and then show other people the body and say, is this actually Jesus? So anyway, it just seems that with little things in the Bible, there's little clues indicating that they were suspicious it wasn't really Jesus that had died on the cross, or that or that Jesus got away. And they kept it secret that Jesus had a wife and kids and stuff like that. And there's like pro-Roman propaganda in there in the New Testaments and stuff. And that's why it's like when you study this and you just spend time studying it, you realize how utterly ridiculous the Christian religion is, and how you just, it's for low IQ people. There's nothing more I can say. It's just, it's the truth about it. It's like, if you get tricked by this, it's like, what the hell? Like, one thing that's really bizarre about Christians is that they think that just because it's written in the Bible, that means it's the word of God. It's like, what? There can't be translation mistakes. There can't be intentional lies put in there by man. There can't be editings being done by the Roman Empire. Like, it's just like, what makes you think this book is perfect? And they pick up the Bible and they treat it like it's just this perfect book and everything's right there. Like, look what this book says. It says blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so what? What makes you trust that? Remember, you have to absolutely fact check everything. You have to look for shiftiness in everything. And then you won't get conned. So anyway, they're just sort of strange. Like they're honestly like weirdly obsessed. I think it makes them feel good on the inside, and that it's not about facts or truth or information. It's just whatever makes you feel good. So they like the idea of having this imaginary friend and this perfect book and an explanation for the universe, and they love that. It makes them feel comfortable, and so they just stick with it. It's kind of like the lefties with the government, how they view the government as this big beautiful thing in the mainstream media, and like it's trustworthy, and it's like their protector, and it's like, hey dude, they're fucking trying to kill you. Like, look what they're selling and forcing on you, and it scares them so much that they just would rather believe in the false story that they get from the mainstream news and the government, and makes them feel more comfortable. The next thing is that back then, when it comes to the homosexuality thing, so anyway, deep within the Vatican, I mean, they have deep information in there, information that's not politically correct. And if there is some gay connection with Jesus and gayness or pedophilia, then it would be in there. Also, people from the Middle East and maybe from Europe as well, back then it was a different world. Like, for example, the Prophet Muhammad, he was a pedophile. Like, he married, like, I don't know, some 8-year-old girl or something. Like, things were just weird back then. So if Jesus, like a 32-year-old or whatever, was with like a 14-year-old boy, nowadays it would be labeled pedophilia, but back then it was much more normal. Another thing they used to do is that I think when a boy was becoming a man, maybe when he started to go through puberty or something like that, another man, an older man, would take him out hunting and teach him how to hunt, and maybe teach him about the stars, maybe even teach him some spiritual stuff. And I heard that he would have gay sex with him. Like, I don't know how it worked out, but maybe he was just teaching him about orgasm or masturbation or something, but something potentially gay was going on. So Hubbard could have come across some information that mentioned this ritual or this tradition and Jesus being involved in it, and him going, oh, well, Jesus is a pedo, and then putting it in this document saying Jesus is a pedo. So this is where it's very complex, but I mean, I was really like, whoa, that's a wild statement, saying Jesus is gay pedo or something like that. Like, that's pretty out there. The wild outbreaks of anger that Jesus had, I can believe that because Jesus was a revolutionary. And that's why it was the Romans. It was not the Jews that killed him. It was the Romans. He was pissing off the establishment at the time, because Rome had an empire and they had that area of Israel, and Jesus was saying, hey, I'm the king of this area, fuck you. So Jesus, this is what they say, like, oh, these people like Muhammad, or or even L. Ron Hubbard, like you think of these people, oh, these spiritual, and you find out, no, these are like political people. There's a big connection between spiritual and political. If it's just spiritual leader and just a religious leader, then the dude's walking around peacefully and he's not trying to do political shit. But Jesus was into political stuff. He was trying to take over Israel he was trying to take it from the Romans. Honestly. He was a political guy, and he was a hardcore, he was kind of, I honestly, imagine Alex Jones being more spiritual and then trying to just take over a government and literally marching in there going, we're taking over, I'm the king of Israel, I'm the king of Texas, I'm blah, 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 blah. And like, that's what he was like. And he would have been viewed as a kook by the Jews in that area at the time, because they were just like, what the hell? And he was just like, yeah, God's told me I'm the God's king son and blah blah blah. And also Jesus was from an aristocratic background, so like an elitist background, and those people consider themselves to be the kings of those areas. You know, if it wasn't for the Romans, they would be in power and stuff. So, and he married his wife, who he married, like they say, the prostitute Mary, but I don't think she was a prostitute. That was just a lie created to, but it could have been true. She could have been, but I just don't think she would have, no, she wouldn't have been poor. A poor woman would need to be a prostitute, but anyway, she was from an elite background, Mary. If you want the whole truth about Christianity, you've got to read Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code. You got to watch the movie, but then after that, read the book, because that's excellent when it comes to exposing the whole truth about Christianity. It's just so ridiculous. What was I saying? So Jesus was honestly a revolutionary, and he was trying to overthrow the Romans. So Pontius Pilate damn well killed him. Honestly, I've investigated this. It's very deep and hard, but the information from Farsight helps, because they get remote viewers, the people who are psychic, to look at past events, and they collect data from it and tell you it back. And these are trustworthy psychics. You can prove that they're trustworthy. And they really add to the history, and they really help you understand what really went on back then. So Jesus wasn't this like peaceful hippie dude. Like, he was hanging out with terrorists. I mean, like actually terrorists. Honestly, of his time, that were like anti-Roman Empire and willing to do crazy stuff. So he was a tough, hardcore dude. He wasn't this like pretty gentle guy that was like, oh, turn the other cheek and stuff like that. That's why, like, Christians, they believe in weird philosophies and stuff, but they're just somehow they've stories that got into the Bible. But I bet you Jesus wasn't really like that. Jesus was hardcore. He walked into the temples and were like, what the hell's these money changers, and picked it up and threw it around like, you fucking money changers and shit. Like, he was an aggressive dude. You can't lead a revolution without being aggressive. And so that's why Hubbard's saying here that Jesus had anger in him. Yeah, is that's not that outrageous. But yeah, there's lots of blasphemy going on here, so I'm sure that's why he says, a few of those Christian toes who I stood on and stuff. I imagine Christians would get really upset about this. So, I mean, here it appears that Hubbard believes that these Markup aliens are trying to invade Earth or something like that. And maybe there are this other group of aliens that are trying to invade here, but from my understanding, it's just reptilians, and they've already got this place under control, and they're just continuing their control of Earth. And so maybe Hubbard, I don't know, he didn't work out that they were reptilians. He could only see that they were humans, but he was probably seeing the humans that are being controlled by the reptilians or something. Alright, so it's hard to read here with this freaking camera light. It's just like so annoying. Okay, this is where it gets really good. And also at the end of this sentence, he goes, so deep and insidious is the biologic implanting. So people are implanted so that they can't. He says here it's really important. All you have to look. You have only to look at the history his teachings inspired to see where it all inevitably leads. That's referring to Jesus, and you see how it brought about the Dark Ages in Europe. For 1,000 years, Europe went backwards and didn't advance because Christianity came in and the teachings weren't good. It wasn't good spiritual data, and it's illogical. It's like praising being sacrificed on a cross. So it's praising being a loser, basically. The Europeans, which were pagan before that, and the Roman Empire was much more freer religiously, you could believe in anything. There was multiple gods and you could be multiple religions and you could have fun. It's kind of like what things are nowadays, where everything's opened up and it's freer. I can be whatever religion I want, and I can try this and try that. But Christianity came in and got more and more popular in like the year 300 AD and 400 and 500. And it meant that you only allowed one God, you only allowed one Savior, Jesus, and suddenly religiously you're all controlled by this one thing, and you're thought controlled like the Christians I'm telling you about that aren't that awake because they're too into Christianity. So that's not a good thing. So when you take a whole civilization like the Europeans, and from them being religiously free, they could learn things in advance and go on their own life journey and stuff, and then suddenly they're like, just Christianity, just this thing, and it suppresses you. Like if I think that when I got raised with Christianity, and by the time I reached an adult, I was a dumbass, and I didn't get much advancement at all from Christianity. So, but since then I've been a pagan, really, because I've been doing all these different things. So imagine you take a whole civilization and all the men and women as well, all of them, you have them just at Christianity, and when they reach age 20, they don't go off and get into other religions and stuff like that and start advancing. They stay in Christianity all the way up until they die. So how advanced would they be? They wouldn't know much about deep things and mystical things, and it wouldn't help them with science. And that's why it brought about the Dark Ages in Europe. And that's the history that Hubbard's talking about here. So that's why you need to know so much about history to understand what he's communicating, because he doesn't say the Dark Ages, but he's talking about that. But he's probably talking about also like the Crusades and maybe the Crusades, but like how witches would get burnt on the stake and stuff like that. And like witches, I mean what the hell's the deal with that? I mean, you look into it and witches are like, they're women who were spiritual New Agers and stuff like that, and the Christians were picking on them, and they were like Harry Potter people, and they were trying to work out ways of curing people's illnesses and doing magical things, and the Christians were like, no, you can't do that, the book doesn't say that. And it's just this crazy backwards religion. It's just so primitive, it's disgusting. It's so not European Christianity. It's not. I mean, you look at it and it's just, it didn't even originate there. Like our own religions got destroyed by Christianity. It's kind of like, imagine you have a good science subject like quantum physics, and then some new theory from somewhere outside of Europe, more primitive, someone there comes up with some new physics, and it somehow becomes popular and the mainstream media popularize it, and it just takes over from quantum physics and our own physics. And then physics, the whole of the physics subject gets dumbed down and becomes crap, and scientists don't get it advanced in physics. And it's because of this foreign crap that came in and got popular. That's honestly what is going on with Christianity. And so there's also the fact that the church like took over, and if a scientist was saying that the earth was round, then he could potentially get killed. And the scientists had all these problems of getting killed for just telling the truth. So it's kind of like nowadays where you say there's two genders and you get attacked by the left and you get censored. Like this whole communism has come in now, but it wasn't around like 150 years ago. Like it was a lot freer. Oh no, they had Christianity back then. Christianity was still strong back then, so you had to be careful what you were going to say. Like even if you suggest some of the ideas of evolution, you can get into trouble because of the church. So anyway, Christianity has been a suppressive element in Europe for a long time, and only around the 1500 AD, when scientists created their Illuminati network, did they manage to start spreading science, and they had to do it in secret because the church would have killed them. And that's how the Illuminati, the secret society, started. And they had to advance themselves, and then you get the Renaissance start up, and we get more and more inventions, and that's all because these people managed to break the shackles of the control of Christianity in the church. And it seems like we were most free with everything actually in about, honestly seems like the 60s. We were super free. And that's when we put a man on the moon, and we as a civilization, we achieved outer space travel and stuff like that. Like they started colonizing the moon and Mars, and that was where we as a civilization just won, just completely became like the gods, like the aliens, and actually started our military secretly started hanging out with aliens and working with them in underground bases. And we, and you could own a good quality car that wouldn't break down. You can own a nice house, and civilization was at its absolute peak in the 60s. It was much cooler, much uptone. And the problem is that since then, communism has taken over. And that's where now we're getting censorship of speech and police states and all these things coming in and clamping us back down. So before we were under the shackles of Christianity, and now the shackles, as they were switching over shackles, and it possibly could be, all this stuff could be getting pushed by the aliens who run Earth, like the reptilians. While there was this changeover period, there was actually a brief period, probably from the 60s through to the 80s, where things were actually pretty fucking cool and free, and you could say that there was two genders without, you could say that the world, you could say these theories and not get into trouble. You could say we are, anyway. So now we've got a whole new problem with the communism thing. But anyway, I'll continue with this. And in case you're wondering, you might think that the Illuminati are evil. The problem is there's different groups of the Illuminati, and the problem also is that the Illuminati was good, and guess what got infiltrated? Just like Australia got infiltrated. Because would you say the Australian government was evil in 1901, or even evil in 1960? But what would you say about it now? It's fucking communistic. It is communista. It's infiltrated. It's the politicians are standing there and saying, we're making a new rule, and the new rule is that you've got to get murdered. They're not saying that exact word, but they're essentially saying that. And I'm not going to say what I'm referring to, but you guys who are awake know what I'm referring to. They are directly standing there and saying, take your poison. Take your poison. That's what they're saying. Now, if that isn't evil, then what the fuck is? And so they're fully communist now. But they weren't so much doing that now. I saw a documentary actually that was done in the 80s by 60 Minutes in America. And it was talking about the swine flu and the way the American government handled the swine flu and how it was completely dodgy. It was like a documentary you'd see on InfoWars, but this was a mainstream 60-minute show, and they were actually criticising the government and showing the people who got damaged by this swine flu thing that I don't want to mention, but you could probably guess what I'm talking about. And it was amazing, because it was like, wow, 60 Minutes was actually kind of doing some good stuff back then. It wasn't like completely evil, whereas now 60 Minutes would do the opposite. They would do a story that was picking on someone who was trying to expose the truth about the swine flu or something like that. 60 Minutes is completely infiltrated. So you have to understand, with the Illuminati and other things, they get infiltrated, you know what I mean? And that's why I always use the word communism, because that's the best word to describe it, okay? That's just the best, I think, the most descriptive word to call them. They're damn fucking commies. And it's not necessarily the Freemasons they're evil. It's the damn fucking commies that took over the Freemasons. You know what I mean? It's not the Australian government that's evil. It's the fucking commies that took over the Australian government and getting them to do their communistic bullshit. But Hubbard backs up what I'm saying here when he says the secret societies that were set up to stop this control operation have since gone by the wayside. He said that in this thing, something like that. So he's referring to the Illuminati. He's referring to Freemasonry. He's saying that they were set up to set man free, and that's what I was saying. They were there to set man free. The founders of America were Illuminati guys, top Illuminati guys, and they wanted to create a great government where people had freedom and man could rise and improve and go into outer space. You know, what the hell happened? It got flipped on its head. People kept on breaking the constitutional rules, and communists just kept on coming in more and more and more, and now they just hoard the whole place out. And these secret societies aren't about setting man free. They're actually now networks to, well, except I think there might be some still good Illuminati, but they're actually networks now of degrading man. So networks of secret societies are like, kind of like, you can say, intelligence operations. And the intelligence operations were good and were setting up the original Australian government, the original American government. And they were trying to advance man and spread true science and fight the church and the suppression of Christianity. And then as time goes on, the enemy recognizes that they're a tool of fighting them, and they start infiltrating these organizations, and they use them to now start enslaving people. So that's how it is. It's like, I don't know, you've got CIA fighting for American rights, and you've got KGB fighting for in the 60s, fighting for Russia, and the Russia's goal is to infiltrate the CIA and make the CIA commie, and then have the CIA start, instead of advancing freedom, advance slavery. That's what's going on with the secret societies, and that's why he's saying these things get infiltrated. Hubbard's a military guy. He knows how the world works, and it's a war ground. Life in this war and this world, it's just like, whoa, it's just a battleground. It's constantly going on. So anyway, let's see. Oh, this is where it gets good. It is a good joke that the Galactic Confederacy is associated with the serpent in the garden, the beast, and other emissaries of the Prince of Darkness. Yet in certain passages and esoteric interpretations of the Bible, much of which has been taken out and effectively suppressed for centuries, as well as the Kabbalah, the truth reveals itself quite nicely for the clever and the ungullible. So what he's referring to there is top Illuminati data. Illuminati is the highest level of Freemasonry, by the way, but also you can get into it through other cults and stuff. It's the cult, it's the secret society of secret societies. But a big part of it is a funnel up through Freemasonry. It's at the highest level of Freemasonry. So most Masons wouldn't even know about it. In fact, I want to get involved with it one day, and I assume I either want to get really successful and famous, because you can get recruited if you show extreme talent, but also I want to do it going through the levels of Rosicrucianism, because Rosicrucianism, I don't think it's been as corrupted as Freemasonry, and like Freemasonry, apparently you can shoot up through all the levels in 6 months. It was not like that 200 years ago. It was like, it took a lot of work to get up to the highest levels. Like, it was a lot of study, and you really had to be advanced. And now it's just been so degraded and retarded, and I think got taken over by people who were interested in money and communism and crap. And it became more of a way of networking and promoting your business, and it lost its love of knowledge and spiritual advancement, and it's just fucking retarded. I mean, how the hell can you go through all the... when I say 6 months, that's an exaggeration. I honestly heard that you can get all the way up to, like, I mean, there's levels above 33, but you can get all the way up to almost 33 in like 3 months or something like that, 2 months. And a lot of it's just memorizing shit, and it's been really degraded. But also, I believe that the person who's doing it, if that's the way they're approaching it, then that's what they'll get out of it. But I imagine someone like me would be thinking more deeply and trying to understand it and asking questions. And my progress will be a lot slower, because I'll be recognizing that there's actually stuff to learn out of it. But someone who's dumber will just be like, oh, okay, yeah, read this and blah, blah, blah. And they don't quite realize, it's like, dude, you're not supposed to be doing this in 2 months. It's like, this is supposed to take years. And anyway, then if I did that, I imagine that I would show that I'm switched on, and then I'll get promoted and let up into the higher secret levels. But anyway, Rosicrucianism seems better. It seems like, because it didn't quite become an all boys club, and it remained not as famous, because Freemasonry is super famous. So many famous people in Freemasons. It like attracted attention from bad sources, but Rosicrucianism was just this small, unusual group of people who are into spiritual stuff, and they just sort of, I think they've been left alone. They've flown under the radar, and you can actually go into them and do the levels and learn more, and not get attacked. And anyway, the technology has been preserved, basically. I got some stuff. I got their first, I don't know, level in my bag right now. I haven't got around to studying it, but I've read, a quarter of it, but I need to, study more of it. But it's just good data. It just makes sense, and it's great. And of course, people these days can't study it at all, because they don't know to look up words in their dictionary. So if you take some young person and say, hey, study this, they're not going to get anywhere, because you need to do your Scientology where you know how to look up words, because otherwise you just won't make any sense of it. Anyway, Hubbard's talking here about the snake in the Garden of Eden, which is top Illuminati data. And the Garden of Eden, the truth about the Garden of Eden is that was God, who was an alien, a tyrant, alien military commander, created the like a worker slave force or something like that. And like biologically, because aliens know how to do this, and we know how to do it now as well, secretly. You can just, like, I don't know, smash shit together in a lab, and they can just make babies and stuff like that, like biologically, and they can probably even pick the height of the baby and pick if it's got any diseases or not and stuff like that. So, the god, the alien or whatever, like, set up the Garden of Eden and was growing the humans in there and all this sort of stuff. The snake, which was a reptilian alien, and I know I was saying reptilians are bad, but they're like humans. They're not all bad. I mean, there's different types of reptilians. But it seems like the snake, because these reptilians look like literally tall walking snakes. They've got the face like a snake, the greenish skin, the hardish reptile thingo. This reptile alien the snake in the Garden of Eden wanted to set the humans free from slavery, and he gave them knowledge, or he gave them some substance or something like that. I'm almost actually suspicious that it was like almost some sort of hallucinogenic drug, because, or some sort of drug that activates the brain, because that's what the hallucinogenic drugs do. Because all I know is that if you honestly start taking mushrooms or ayahuasca, you instantly start being able to think deeper, and your IQ goes up, and you can spot shifty behavior. So for example, if you hadn't done this, if you hadn't done ayahuasca or mushrooms, and you came into the whole COVID event, I honestly think you're far likely to get tricked by it. But if you had done a bunch of those things in the years before COVID, I think that you would just look at it and go, something seems wrong here. Because when you start taking these substances, you almost have an obsession with looking for the truth about things. It starts waking, like you just have a whole new gear in your mind, and you can see behind people's behavior. It almost like it gives you some sort of intuition. But you can just think deeper. And because the reason I noticed is, I noticed that with the primitive races here on Earth, I don't think they have much of an ability to think deep. They just sort of seem to just, oh, okay, yeah, COVID's happening, yeah, and put a mask on, okay, cool. They seem simple-minded. Well, I feel like when it comes to white people, there are white people who are simple-minded. You can possibly crack them out of that by giving them these substances, and the same with the other races as well. But I just think that there are people out there that are just like, oh yeah, simple, yeah, oh, okay, yeah, oh yeah, wear a mask, and oh yeah, 9/11 happened, and like they don't see what's going on. But when you take ayahuasca and stuff, you just suddenly start being able to think deeply into things, and you can see deeply. And I bet you, if you took, you probably have to go to the anti-COVID protests and pick out 100 of them. You would get like a large amount that had done these substances. I just bet you. Whereas if you went to like a carnival or something like that, and you just picked out 100 people from that, and you find out how many of them have done the substances, I bet you would be significantly less. Like, there are new age of people at these COVID protests, and because they're just more awake, and you won't know what I'm saying until you try the substance, and then you'll see, you go, oh wow, I didn't notice my neighbor would behave and do these sorts of things and stuff like that, because it meant blah 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 blah, and my brother was acting like this because of blah blah blah, and you can just go, whoa. And that's why when you have the when you're actually on the ayahuasca doing like the where you're going through the experience of it, your mind just flares up because you've almost got too much of this stuff in it, and it's like, whoa, and you have like all these realizations about life, and they fly through you at real fast speeds, and that's why it's such a roller coaster ride, because you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then after that, when you've come out of that, you're just left with a little bit of like that ability to see into conspiracies, and it's much more normal, and you're not like, whoa. And it stays with you, I think, for the rest of your life, because you realize that there's deeper stuff going on. Anyway, so it could be that the snake in the Garden of Eden, it could have been that, could be the substance of knowledge, because that's what I would describe ayahuasca and stuff like that as. But it also could be something else. He could have just literally given them some potion that like changed their DNA, because he could have been a DNA scientist as well and wanted to set them free. And then of course God came along, and this is why the Christian religion is so ridiculous, because it's like, what's wrong with having knowledge? And why is that a sin? And why did God then come and punish them for eating from the tree of knowledge or whatever? Like, it's like he didn't like, they didn't, I don't know, smash a window and then God come and go, why they would just smash the window? That's it, I'm punishing you. That makes sense. But then, like, it's like, oh, he just ate an apple, or like he had something from the, he got some knowledge. I mean, why is he getting punished from that? Like, it's so loopy religion. It's just like, and you read the Bible and you study it and you just like, it's so obvious the truth. And that's, I guess, because maybe I'm high IQ and I've studied a lot of words and I know a lot of mystical stuff, so I could actually sort of understand it. I'm just like, this is a piece of shit, bad, mean religion. Like, this character in the Bible, this God in the Bible, wink wink alien, the shit that he does is just totally mean. And I just couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow, I can't believe Christians like this book, because and they want people to read it, because I'm just like, man, I would tell people to read this in order to stop them from liking it. I'll just go, actually sit here and read this. This is a disgusting book. Like, this is a disgraceful book. I thought Richard Dawkins, when he was talking about, he would talk about the God in the Old Testament and say that he was one of the worst characters ever in history. I thought he was exaggerating, because he seems so aggressive in the way Richard Dawkins talks. But after I read it, I'm like, no, he's right. I agree with what he's totally right. He's not exaggerating. I mean, this God is just a disgrace. And it's also just such a terrible book. Like, it repeats itself in certain passages. And then you hear one person saying the story, that they're telling an event, and then the other person, later on you read, the other person says the same event, and the data of what actually occurred in the event doesn't match up. And it's like, because one of them's made a mistake, well, they're both wrong about what happened that they're talking about. And so much of it is so boring, and it's a horrific book. Like, and because I'm used to, I guess, I studied some Rosicrucianism, and I studied Scientology, and I looked into a lot of things, so I guess I was looking for more deep mystical information and stuff like that, and I was like, this is just disgusting. It's like, no wonder why it's dumbing people down. Like, this has got, you know, a crap amount of information. Like, this is just, you have to read. The Bible is the equivalent of like 5 books. And imagine 5 books where a lot of it repeats itself, where a lot of it's got mistakes and hard to understand and poorly written, and it's just like, it's torture having to read it. It's like, this is just such a shit book. Anyway, I don't mean to bag Christianity, but I mean, a lot of people are shocked by the stuff that Hubbard said about Christianity, but you have to know the full story about Christianity, the real truth about it, and then you could understand why he was against it, and he thought he was the Antichrist, and why he thought that was good. And this is also why you'll notice the Apple logo, the Apple products, and it's got the apple with the bite taken out of it, because Steve Jobs was obviously in the Illuminati, and he knew the truth, that he was for knowledge and us not being controlled by these evil aliens. And it was good to take a bite out of the apple of the Garden of Eden. And I agree that the same thing. I think it's good that that reptile snake was there to set humans free. And Hubbard's talking about that here. And he also talks about the Kabbalah, and these are things that these spiritual people know about, these things like that, and the esoteric interpretation. So you got to understand there's a simple interpretation of a Bible passage, and then there's a deep spiritual meaning of it and stuff, which is like they've been hidden and edited and stuff like that. So it really is a race against time, and one that we happen to be losing at the moment, as the implant drama inexorably plays itself out in spite of the breakneck pace I've managed to keep up these last 35 years. So he's been noticing, he wrote this in 1980, he's been noticing that the enslavement's been coming in more and more. It's blaringly obvious right now. And he's saying, you know, more and more people are getting going into this mind control situation, and we're getting more and more enslaved by these aliens, and so we've got to do something about it. And he's saying, hurry up and do this auditing, because it can cure the problem. I had an inkling, but only that, of the insidiousness of this material as far back as 1945. Later, in characteristic over-optimism, I thought that R6 would be the end of it, but that was followed by knots and the purification rundown, and still the strings continued to unwind with the ball at the end of it just out of sight. It makes one wonder about such things as fate and destiny. Such was the resolve with which I managed to cling to that string, not often knowing how close I was to falling into the abyss myself. But destiny is merely the rationalization of feeble minds. Things don't just happen, they are caused, and causative beings can undo the plans of madmen and would-be enslavers, no matter how long those plans may have been in the making. So here's funny, because he's sort of saying, I thought this would set us free from our body. I thought that would set us free. And it's like, yeah, and you told us it would, and you charge us for it and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, because he would exaggerate things. And now he's expecting us to trust him on OT8. And OT8 will set you free. OT8 will solve this problem. It's like, we don't trust you, Hubbard. I don't think so. Your other stuff didn't. I would look more towards a top DNA scientist, really. I think that has a higher chance to set us free of our bodies. I think that our bodies has been specifically had DNA taken out of it, because these Farsight remote viewers, whenever they look into aliens and stuff like that, time and time again the aliens have psychic abilities, time and time again. And it just seems like us, and also human aliens, so ones that look like us, psychic abilities, but us here on Earth, it's missing. And so it could be that we're all implanted here on Earth, and that's why. But also it could be the specific body type that's here on Earth. And Hubbard's idea here about the biologic implanting is he's combined the ideas. So he's saying the implant has changed the biology, the DNA of the body, and made it so we can't go free. So whatever way, anyway, it needs to be reversed, and maybe a really good biologist can change the DNA and give us our psychic abilities back and stuff. But aliens can do some serious shit. Like, there are some aliens that there are the praying mantis type alien, and they look like an insect, and they can honestly like make eye contact with someone and change that person's memory, and even possibly wipe the person's memory just by being near them and making eye contact with them. So you want to talk about powerful abilities and spiritually powerful or mentally powerful or whatever. I mean, that's like, wow, imagine that. So it's just I think I would be, if it's funny how Hubbard, he created all this Scientology stuff, and then at the end he starts moving into trying to handle the DNA. And I would have, if I was him and still alive, I would have moved even further and gone into DNA science and really tried to find out the truth about DNA, and then how to try and make it more psychic and get these abilities back and all this stuff. But I'll just I'll read out one more. There's not much. I'm not going to finish this thing in this briefing. But anyway, I will soon, I guess I could, I'll see how I go. I will soon leave this world, only to return and complete my mission with another identity. Although I long to stretch my arms back in repose on some distant star in some distant galaxy, it appears that that is one dream that will have to wait, but my return depends on people like you doing these materials thoroughly and completely so that there will be a genetically uncontaminated body for me to pick up and resume where I left off. A body free of religious mania, right-wrong dichotomy, and synthetic karma. Oh gosh, that's such an interesting idea, sorry. The job ahead is far too tough to even contemplate doing with your standard courtesy of certain other dimensional players and their markup pieces, many of whom are right here in the general populace, genetically altered body. Alright, he says quite a lot in this thing though. So basically says he's going to come back as a politician, which I think makes sense because, I mean, how can you be a religious leader when they're installing all these police states and killing everyone, prescribing that people take a substance that kills you? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then fuck me. I mean, I don't know how you can follow any of what I'm doing if you don't even know what I'm referring to there. But we are being made legally to take, it's not really legal, but it's pretty much, they're getting the police to do it. Anything involved with the police is legal. But they're making us take a substance that's killing us. How the hell can you focus on trying to spiritually advance people and get them involved in religion when we're just trying to stay alive? So anyway, it needs to be a political or like some sort of military leader just to come in and just take over the freaking planet as like a dictator and just say none more of this communist crap. But I don't know how the hell that's going to happen. It's crazy. I agree. He needs to come back as a politician or something. And then he has a little dig at Christians again here by saying a body free of religious mania, right-wrong dichotomy, and synthetic karma. So yeah, it seems that these religious people are just like too obsessed with it. They do seem very right and wrong. Like they'll say you're either with Jesus or you're with the devil, and it's very right and wrongy, and it's like it's just retarded. Because it's like, I reckon that if somebody starts studying Rosicrucianism, they're not with Jesus, and I think they're not with the devil. Like, it's not that simple, but they just lump all that stuff that's unusual and alternative, and ayahuasca and Rosicrucianism and Scientology and just anything that's different. Anything that's pagan, anything is, because the word pagan just means not Christian. Anything is just not what they believe in. It's just like, that's wrong, and it's just like, Christian's the only way, this is the only path to freedom. And it's like, what the hell, what freedom are you talking about? More like just path to dumbness. And then he says here, synthetic karma, a body. So the body has, he's saying that the body has these, because of this implanting, it's got the religious mania, the right-wrong dichotomy, the synthetic karma. So he's saying the implant is making the body crazy, basically. And so he's saying that anyway, it's just interesting. So that the implant affects the body, I guess, changes its DNA and gives people these personalities. But the idea of synthetic karma really struck me. That was one of the early things that I was like, wow, what an interesting thing, synthetic karma. The reason I found that really interesting was because I think I had some run-ins with synthetic karma. And I think Hubbard's had some run-ins with it as well in his life. And all I can say is what I think that is referring to with synthetic karma. If you do something that's right, but it's illegal, I think you might run into synthetic karma. Because if you do something that's right, then you shouldn't get bad karma. But you can get bad karma for doing something that's right, because it's illegal, right? So let's say there's a center where they're giving out, where the government's making people get this poisonous substance. And they're lying to everyone saying it's a good substance, but it's a poisonous substance. Now let's say if you went there and you burnt it down. Now I didn't do this, but fuck would I like to do this. I'm not going to I'll say that on camera. I'm never planning on doing it. So if I was planning on doing it, I would not say it on camera. You know what I mean? But I mean, I would love. Someone did it to one of the centres in Sydney. I would love to burn that motherfucker down. You know what I mean? I would love to. I mean, look, it might sound crazy, but I would want someone to knock off the staff members, because then it'll go on the media and everyone will be like, oh, well, some crazy person shut up the bloody centre, and then it'll make other people who are giving out this poison, it would make them question what they've chosen to do, and it would be a good propaganda piece. You know, only if just like a few died or whatever and it really spread, that would be worthwhile in the world, because it would send a message to these people. I can't believe fathers haven't. I guess they must be in shock, but I just think that if I had a kid and that kid got harmed by one of these thingos, I mean, I think I would just like, I would plot, I would work out some way to steal as much wealth from the guy as possible, and then at the end of it, torture the guy. Like honestly, I mean, I would work out some brutal way to make him suffer. Like, I wouldn't want it to be a quick death. Like, I'll be like, this guy's going to cop it. And then I'd stand up and be like, I did right according to God. That's what you're supposed to do. You know, when they're giving out poisonous substances, the men are supposed to do that. And we're not supposed to be in this situation. So sorry, women, we're in this situation because men are fucked up and they're too cowardly. But it takes a lot of guts to do something like that, because you'll have to avoid the police or something like that. But I don't know, I just reckon if you're a father and your kid's been harmed by one of these things, I mean, I would not put up with it. I would just be like, that's it. I'm taking off. I'm doing something that's going to keep me busy as a hobby for the next 2 years, and I'm going to get full revenge on this doctor. I'm going to get him to, like, he'll be like tied up, and he'll be like apologizing and saying, okay, I should actually be a normal person and investigate these substances, not just do what I'm told to get paid and stuff. Like, I'll have the guy really begging for forgiveness, and then at the end of it, I'll put a bullet in his head and just like, oh man, it'll be wild, but it'll be tricky, because it's just, with the police state, it's just so hard to get away with things. It's really risky. You got to factor that in as well. I mean, you don't want to get caught. You can only do it if you know you're really going to get away with it. Anyway, so I went off topic there. But let's say someone did burn down one of these centres. That's a good act. That's a good act. But they might get some bad karma from it. And I think that that's the idea Hubbard's talking about when he says synthetic karma. Because I've done some other things in my life. You'll start thinking I actually burnt a centre down. Honestly, if I'd burn a centre down, I would not bring it up at all. I've done some other things that are like, I would say the right thing to do, but they might be illegal or they might be questionable, like as in they could cause some problems. But they were the right thing that needed to get done at the time. I noticed that I got karma after it, and I'm trying to think what happened. I remember something happened. It happened maybe 2 years ago, I'm trying to think what happened. I think my car broke down after it, and I had little accidents, and so I know what happens when I go PDS. Like, I know when the universe starts giving me crap, stuff like my car will break down, or I get a speeding fine, or I'll stub my toe, or little things like that. But that started happening. In fact, before I even did the act, I was reversing my car, going to do the act, and as I was reversing my car, I think someone called, distracted me, and I bumped into the car behind me, and then I had to pay like $1,400 to repair the tiniest dent. And that was really unusual, because I've always driven out of this car park every day. And even if someone called me at that time, like, it was just It was just weird. And that was before I even did the act. But the thing is that I'd already decided I'm doing the act. So therefore, in the spiritual universe, it was already done. So that's why I could see how it already had karma come in before that. And then after that, the car broke down, and I think that was a whole drama, getting a new car or something like that. And then I might have had something else happen as well, and I noticed, I was like, wow, that was like the universe giving me karma. I could tell it was like a good freaking hit. Good, maybe a good few punches, bam, 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 from the universe. And I noticed it because I was like, that's karma. But I was like, but I did what was right. So I thought, it's happened some other times. So it's a definite phenomenon. So I've thought that, like if you go and you give biscuits to you help an old lady walk across the street, that'll get you some, I don't even know if that'll get you, well, it might get you some good karma, but you're not going to get bad karma from it. But usually the tough things in life, you might cop shit for them. Anyway, I think that's synthetic karma. And that's what Hubbard's talking about. But I don't think he's correct about synthetic karma, because I know that Hubbard, especially looking into Hubbard's private life, Hubbard did a lot of dodgy things that he thought was right and was necessary in order to, I guess, advance his religion and all this sort of stuff. And he thought it was synthetic karma. Now, here's where the problem comes in. I think there wasn't synthetic karma, and I think that he came up with the idea of synthetic karma, like a fake karma, because he couldn't see that what he was doing was wrong. So, yeah, basically. And I thought about the things that I'd done where I got in synthetic karma, and what I realized was that, no, this was a message from God, like a message from the universe. It wasn't synthetic karma. It was karma, because what I was doing was wrong. And why was what I was doing was wrong? Because that's not what I'm supposed to do with my life. It's not that my actual act was wrong. No. It's about you personally and the meaning in your life and the mission in your life. Like that time I was telling you about where I went out in my car and I hit the thing on, it cost me $1,400. The act I did was right, and it was a good thing to do. But it wasn't right for me, and it wasn't a part of my mission in my life, and it wasn't something that I was supposed to do. So what did God and the universe do? They reached out and smacked me in the face. And so then, next time when I thought of doing that, I thought, whoa, hold on a second. Last time, I smashed my car. Should I do that thing again? Because the universe doesn't want me to do that thing. That's not what I'm supposed to do. Everyone has different purposes in their life. There's probably someone out there who should be doing that. And if they went and did that, they wouldn't get synthetic karma. They'd probably get good karma, because it's more appropriate for them to do that. It suits them and the meaning of their life and all that stuff. But for me, it wasn't, because I noticed that my life is controlled by God or the universe or whatever. And if I start heading down the wrong path, something comes in and knocks me to try and head me down this way, and something comes in and knocks me in that way, right? It's trying to head me. So the synthetic karma, I'm going down and I'm like, no, this is the right thing to do. And the karma smacked me and I'm like, but fuck you, this is the right thing to do. And karma smacks me and goes, no, this is the right path. You've got to find your path. So I don't know what it is. I don't know why we don't just get a message from God. It'll be handier. But however it works is it pushes us and guides us in the path that we're supposed to go down. And don't think that the smack from the karma means that what you did was wrong. No, what you did could be right, but the smack from karma means what you did was not what you were supposed to do with your life. It's not your will. It's not your true life mission. And that's what possibly what karma is, actually. It could be smashing us into our meaning of our life. Because, like, well, for example, let's say if I just became a pizza maker or something like that, it's quite possible I could get chronic depression from that. Because it's so boring and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do with my life. Someone else could make heaps of pizzas and the karma doesn't come in and smack them by giving them depression. But if I did pizza making, I'll just be like, it's possible I could go into a big stage of depression, just be like, this is just so boring, I shouldn't be doing this, blah, blah, blah. What is that? Why do I have those depression feelings? It's God hitting me with it. You know what I mean? Saying, no, stop it. You're not supposed to do that. If God just let me be and let me feel nice and happy, then would I stop making pizzas? No, I might continue making pizzas. God doesn't want me making pizzas. Do you see what I mean? So this is what I could be working out here, what karma is, and karma is some sort of spiritual way of guiding you in your right direction in life. So that's what that could be, the synthetic karma. The next thing with there could be a second explanation of synthetic karma. So Hubbard possibly didn't realize this thing where I'm saying where you got to work out your path and what you're supposed to do and stuff, and you were making wrong decisions in your path, and that's why you were getting illnesses and these attacks. What in a court of law, like a proper moral court of law, what you did was right, but that's not what you got the attack for. You got the attack for what you were doing was not what you were supposed to do, though. Anyway, the next reason for synthetic karma is that whatever you do, whatever you put your attention on, you pull similar experiences into your universe. So if you're thinking about the Miami Dolphins and wearing the Miami Dolphins hat and you're vibrating Miami Dolphins, you're going to come across people from Miami, people who play football, I think it's a football team, and it's just going to happen. And I notice it heaps. I don't have to do anything, but it happens with traveling. Like, you know, someone will be like, oh, I know someone, like, they'll say where you're from, and then I'll say, oh, I know someone from blah, 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 or I've got a friend there, or I'm planning on moving there. And it's like, oh, well, why does everyone seem to know where I'm from? And I know it's not that everyone knows someone where I'm from or has been and lived where I'm from. It's just that because I'm from there, I vibrate there, and those people fall into my universe all the time, and it's a synchronicity thing. So if you're going to, with this synthetic karma thing, if you're going to say, like, I'll give the example of burning down one of these poison centers, what are you vibrating at that moment of deciding to burn down one of these poison centers? You're vibrating a criminal act, essentially, because it's an illegal act. You know that if you get busted, you're going to be getting into some serious trouble. So that's what you're vibrating. So guess what happens? The next day, your house burns down, or the neighbor's house burns down, or a criminal walks up to you on the street and asks you for 50 cents. Because you're vibrating a criminal act. Do you see what I mean? So let's say you, like Anthony Fauci, let's say you do to Anthony Fauci what should be done to Anthony Fauci, and I think you guys know what should be done to Anthony Fauci. You actually go and you do that to Anthony Fauci. You're vibrating that act. So what happens? Next minute you get a phone call, or something happened to your cousin. You know, or next minute you're walking down the street and someone pulls out a knife and attempts to stab you, because you're vibrating that and you're pulling in people who are connected with that act into your universe. And it's not like God saying what you did was wrong to Anthony Fauci. No, it's just that because you did that, it's now stuck up in your universe. So probably the only way to save yourself from this is after doing it. I think you then possibly needed to do lots of meditation and visit a location where it's really peaceful and totally let it get out of your mind and totally forget about it. So you wash yourself of that vibration, and then you can go back to normal life and not be concerned about getting the synthetic karma. So I don't think Hubbard understood that phenomenon as well, which could be an explanation for synthetic karma, because that could be why he's getting the synthetic karma. But it's really interesting, actually, this whole idea of washing yourself of vibrations. It's like clearing yourself. It's like lots of meditation, I guess ayahuasca and other things, and getting it all out of you. And then you're no longer vibrating bad things. So get all the badness out of you. You're no longer vibrating bad things. So guess what happens? You no longer have bad things happen in your life because you're not carrying it around, right? Like I'm carrying around Melbourne in me. So I come across people who know something about Melbourne. Imagine if I washed Melbourne out of me and then I just traveled, and then I would like bump into people from people who wouldn't have connections to Melbourne, basically. So that's probably why daily meditation and stuff like that is necessary, to wash you of these negative things, so then you're clean and you're going around in life and you're not having some angry person as a customer, or you're not having some mean homeless person trying to stab you, or you're not having some bitch girlfriend trying to beat you up or something like that. So I just had a realization. I think that's really interesting, but now I totally get that. It's like you start being able to build your own universe and not, you know, your vibrations are right, and then you don't have bad karma coming into your life. And maybe we just worked out what karma is, basically, because you've done something bad to someone else. So let's say you were a pizza shop manager and you slapped up some bitch. Well, now you're vibrating slapping up bitches. So what's going to happen to you in the future? You're going to get some new job and you're going to come across a bitch or something like that, or someone's going to slap you, you know. Maybe you're friends with some ice addict or something like that, and they were a crazy ice addict. And so because you spent some time with them, now you're vibrating crazy ice addictness because it's just in your universe. You can't help it. Then, you know, you just run into crazy ice addict people, and it just causes you problems. So yeah, this is interesting. I'm really happy about that, working out the karma thing. I really think that's really an interesting thing, because I like the idea of washing yourself, washing and cleaning your vibrations. It really actually reminds me of ayahuasca, actually, because when you go into it, you almost get like scanned by like an alien, and it's like, and it goes over you, alien machinery or something. It's a really strange experience. I'm telling you, it's out of this world. And it's like goes through and it's like scanning you, and I think it looks for incorrections, like faulty things in the body, and then it goes in there and corrects them. But it could just be doing this whole thing I'm saying, where it's washing you of bad vibrations and problems and stuff. Then after that, you're free to just live life and have whatever experience you want, and not be trapped by your experiences of your vibrations, right? And anyway, it's like washing myself of Melbourne. I could do that if I wanted to. I mean, I don't really need to, because there's not there's a lot of communism in Melbourne, so I probably should wash myself of it. But the problem is that because I'm always communicating with Melbourne, it's hard to wash myself of something that you're communicating with, because you're always just going to be, it's going to be in your universe. But I just had experiences in my life where it's just like there's too much coincidence going on There's no way this is accidental. You know what I mean? It's yeah, anyway, so look, I'm up to where am I up to? Well, anyway, there's really not that much more to go on, so I'll read out in the next one. I'll read out the next one, and then I'm gonna possibly finish up. So it'll be number 6, the evil number. Possibly finish up the whole podcast and the briefing on OT8 in the next one. So yeah, this is exciting. I love this OT8 thing. See how it's just such deep information, synthetic karma. See, so interesting. You've been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host, Andy Nolch. Thanks for listening, and remember, what you thought was impossible is possible. And also, remember that when life becomes a battleground, knowledge is your best weapon.